Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be having my November wrap up. So November was a pretty good reading month for me. I read 23 books, which is the most books I have read in a month, like, ever, I think. I mean, a lot of them were novellas and some of them were shorter books, so I feel like I kind of had a help there. But we're going to talk about them. So I had 8 5 stars, 8 4 stars, 6 3-star, and 1 2-star, no DNFs, and they were all romance. They were paranormal romance, historical romance, contemporary romance. I pretty much read, I think I read everything except for dark romance. I don't think I read any of that. Anyway, okay. Let's get started. So the first book that I read was Sanctuary by Alexandria House. This is a very short novella, and it is sort of like a paranormal romance aspect. I read this for the Love in the Night readathon, and I talked about it a little bit more in depth in that vlog. Most of these books, not most of them, but a lot of them I've talked about in depth in my vlogs. And I will have the link to my vlog playlist down below if you want to hear more of my in-the-moment thoughts on those. So this book has a really unique paranormal concept, which I really loved, but it's also sort of a spoiler for the story, so I feel like I can't tell you what it is, but I will say it's something that it's not your typical paranormal element that you would be expecting. So the story follows Sam and Temple, who were high school sweethearts, and they had one last night together, and it was prom night, and then they were torn apart and separated, and then 20 years later Sam comes back into Temple's life trying to win her back because he's just always loved her and has been waiting for a time to get back with her. So I feel like this novella had a whole lot of potential, and I know that a lot of people really loved it, but for me it just fell really flat. There just wasn't enough time to build up this epic soulmate type of love, which is really what the whole plot is based around. I really didn't feel much of any love. This was really super steamy, but the soulmate love, which is, like I said, like a plot point that it really hinges on, just really wasn't there for me. And there was one line in particular that really bothered me, and it mentions attempted suicide with just one sentence, and that's all it says about it. It doesn't elaborate on it. It just the way that it was brought up and how it was just so casually just brushed off just really didn't sit well with me, and so I gave this a 2 stars. I was really honestly pretty disappointed with this. Okay, so now we're moving into the 3-star reads. The first 3-star read that I had was The Barista and the Bear by Rebel Carter. This was really pretty cute. I gave this 3 stars. This is just a really short, very fun, flirty, kind of cheesy, really no plot to it, but it was just so fun and cute, and it was just kind of just a freaking delight. There were some funny moments in the dialogue. I thought their flirtation was really cute. I just thought it was cute, but it just wasn't anything that I would probably really remember. But I did honestly enjoy this a lot. This follows Teresa, who is a barista, and Cash, who is a bear shifter, and it's really just their brief fated mate love story, and it was just cute. It just kind of makes me smile. It was cute. If you're in the mood for something just cute and fun, I would recommend this. And the next 3-star book that I have is Right Before Christmas by Julie Hammerly. I received an e-arc of this from NetGalley in exchange for my honest review, and I gave this book 3 stars. This was a pretty cute, fun rom-com Christmas story. It definitely gave me vibes of like a Hallmark movie. I thought it was really cute. It had a lot of just happy, fun moments. So this book follows Matt and Dani. Matt is a very famous fantasy writer. He has this really famous fantasy series that's very like Game of Thrones-esque kind of, that has been turned into a TV show, and he is under a really strict deadline to get the next book finished like right before Christmas so that they can produce the next season of the TV show. Dani is a recently widowed woman who has an older daughter. She's moved back in with her parents into the same small town where Matt has come to work on his book. They end up having a chance meeting on the street with a lot of sparks and chemistry, and then Matt ends up trying to hire a housekeeper and personal chef, and he hires Dani without realizing that she's the one that he had that brief meeting at night with, where they shared a kiss and had some chemistry. I really thought this was cute, this was fun, this was very PG, closed door. It was fun, and I really enjoyed it. It definitely felt like it was lacking just a little bit on the chemistry and the romance, but if you're looking for a fun, clean, Christmassy rom-com that kind of deals with that whole fan world of like a really popular TV series, I would recommend this because it really was cute and fun. It just was, again, kind of just didn't have enough oomph to get higher than 3-star, but it was a good fun read. Okay, and the next book that I read was Dark Desires After Dusk by Kresley Cole. This is book number 5 in the Immortals After Dark series, and I rated this 3 stars. This is probably my least favorite in the series so far, even though I had very high hopes because I love Cade, and this was he's a demon, so it's like a demon love story, so I was super hyped about that, but this just kind of ended up falling flat. So this follows Cade, who is trying to make a connection with his fated mate Holly, who doesn't really know that the world of Immortals After Dark exists. She's been raised as a human. She ends up being something more and is the key to the evil bad guy's plot to, you know, become top evil bad guy. So Cade ends up trying to protect her and keep her safe, and they have this relationship that starts to develop, but it was very, very, very slow. I think the thing that I didn't like much about this was I just really had a hard time connecting with Holly. She's probably my least favorite heroine that I've read in this series. She was honestly a little bit just bratty with Cade. Like, she was really bratty. She was really back and forth in her feelings with him, and she just was in denial so often about how she felt for him, and she just kept trying to repress that all the time, and it just kind of got a little bit old. So I mean, it's still a worthwhile book to read, and it does advance the overall plot of the Immortals After Dark series, but it was definitely one that, like, I put down for several weeks before I picked it back up again, and it's definitely my least favorite in the series. But again, a 3-star. A 3-star Kresley Cole book is still a good book. It's just, compared to the other ones that I've read, this one was my least favorite. The next book that I read was a very short Christmas novella. I did a whole reading vlog reading Christmas books. This was one of them. This one is Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera. This book was really just super, super cute. It follows, I think it's Kikea is how you say her name, and Sully. Kikea is a chef. She's a really well-known chef, but she's trying to really make her way in the world and make a name for herself. And so she enters this holiday baking competition where they pair like really well-known chefs with home bakers, which was super fun. That was probably my favorite aspect of this book. I loved, loved, loved the holiday baking show in the background. That's just, I love cooking shows. I love holiday baking shows. They're my favorite thing. So that was super, super fun. And then the other one we have is Sully. So this is also a sapphic romance. So we have Sully, who is a home baker. She's really spunky. She is really proud of her culture. They both have Dominican Republic background, like ethnicity in their culture. And Sully is super proud of that. And she really tries to put those type of flavors in the things that she wants to make. And Kikea is really not, she's because of some situation that has gone on with her family, she's really kind of trying to put that away and just move forward with her life in America, so they kind of butt heads with that at first. This was such a sweet read. I actually ended up giving this 3.5. It would almost be a 4-star read because it was so sweet and so cute. The only real problem I had with that is that, again, I felt like their romance was a little bit rushed, and I feel like that often has happened to me with the novellas that I've found. I have had a hard time finding one where I felt their romance was really believable in the short time frame, and that kind of happened here for me. And the other problem that it was just a small problem I had with this, is that it's written from both of their perspectives, and at times it was difficult for me to distinguish the voice, and I had to keep going back and checking, okay, so this is Sully's perspective and this is Kikea's. But this gave me such good, strong Christmas vibes. I loved, loved, loved the cooking show background, and the characters were really enjoyable and relatable, and it was really, really cute. And as I'm talking about it, I kind of feel like maybe I should have given it a higher rating because it was really fun. It was one of the most memorable of those holiday novellas that I read, and I would absolutely recommend this if you want a sweet, fun cooking show type of holiday romance. It was really cute. Okay, the next 3-star book I had is also a Christmas novella, and this was Missing Christmas by Kate Claiborne. This book was really cute as well. This was a solid 3-star read for me. It follows Kristen and Jasper, who work together as sort of like law firm partners, and they have both had really strong feelings for each other for a really long time. It's kind of undisclosed how long that is, because the book starts with an opening scene where they have a kiss, and it just kind of gets right into there. So you don't really get to see the buildup of their romance, and that really kind of made it a 3-star read for me, is because I wanted to see that progression and not just get in there when they were kissing. But it was really cute. It was really fun. This one had a lot of really good Christmas vibes, and Jasper really makes a cute grand gesture in here that was super Christmassy. But after their kiss, the next day they show up at work, and super tension between them, really kind of struggling with how are they going to work together and still, you know, with this kiss that they're not talking about. And so they get to work and they find out that one of the cases that they're working on, which is one of the most important cases for their firm, has kind of decided to leave them. So they get on a plane. It's right before Christmas. They head out to that client's home to try and convince them to stay. And as they do that, they end up stuck there and snowed in together at the client's home in sort of like a guest house. So that was really fun. Snowed in romance. I really liked that part of it too. Overall, I felt like this book was really cute, really heartwarming, really fun. It was definitely an enjoyable Christmas read, but just again, like, didn't quite have the emotion that I wanted there, but overall, it was very cute. This one was a steamy one too. Okay, and the next book I did a whole reading vlog for. This one is in my series of books that I am doing that are all about reading books that I bought for their stepbacks, and that is Dukes Prefer Blondes by Loretta Chase. This was a solid 3-star read for me. It was really, really cute. It has one of the best prologues I have ever read. I did a chapter of these books, and from the minute I read the prologue, I was like instantly hooked and really wanted to read it. So this book follows Lady Clara and Oliver Radford. Oliver will eventually become a duke. Now, they knew each other as children. Oliver was a little bit older than Lady Clara, and they had this really cute meeting as kids where Clara kind of ends up defending Radford and really just kind of wins him over and blows him away. Clara is really very much an intellectual, like not really an intellectual, but she wants to be known for her mind instead of her beauty. That's really a theme throughout the whole course of this book, is she wants to be known for more than her looks, which, as this book kind of hits you over the head with, she's super beautiful, everyone thinks she's stunning, and she's just like an airhead and doesn't have a thought in her brain. And that kind of got to be a little bit much for me after a while. I did really like the writing of this. I thought it was really carefully and sort of expertly put together. The plot, it was a little bit slow also in this, and honestly it was kind of non-existent for me to tell you about. It's basically they end up working together to find a missing boy, and then they decide to get married, and it's them trying to work out their relationship from there and decide if they even have feelings for each other. But the thing that kind of bothered me the most about this is that I just didn't feel like Radford was the type of hero that I liked. He was definitely a little bit condescending to her and didn't really give her brain the credit that it was due. Like, he was constantly making these little jabs about her and how she wanted to be treated as an equal, and I don't know, it just kind of got really old that he kept using something that he knew she was so sensitive about, meaning that like she wanted to be treated as an equal, she wanted to be able to have her voice heard, and he would constantly say stuff like, well, you're just a pretty face, and just things like that, and it was just a little untasteful for me. I just honestly, like, that is something that is just a pet peeve of mine, and I couldn't see past it, and it made me want to give this a 2-star, honestly, because it bothered me so much, but trying to look at it more objectively, I can see how this would definitely appeal to some readers who like a lot of banter and a lot of kind of, you know, like sharp-tongued exchanges between the two, and also if you like a marriage of convenience that happens early in the book and then you get to see them married for a while, you might like this too. Loretta Chase is definitely an author that I am interested in reading more. This was my first book from her, but it kind of missed the mark for me. So 3-star, it's still a worthy read for in the historical romance genre. It just wasn't quite the type that I like best. Okay, now moving on to my 4-star reads. So the first 4-star read that I had was Her Night with the Duke by Diana Quincy. I really enjoyed this, and I am definitely interested in reading more from this author. I thought this was super well done, and it was just a fun, good time to read. So this book follows Hunt, she calls him Hunt, and Leela. And the book starts off with them meeting in an inn, and it ends up that there's only one room, only one bed. They end up together, have one night of passion, which makes Hunt kind of not able to forget Leela, and he thinks about her all the time. She kind of moves on a little bit more quickly than he does. But they end up meeting again later when, come to find out, he is actually engaged to be married to her stepdaughter, because Leela is a widow and her husband's daughter is engaged to Hunt. So there's that whole dynamic, which sounded like it was going to be super, super interesting. And it was honestly resolved. That aspect was resolved a little quickly and a little bit too easily, like you knew how it was going to end. And I kind of wanted there to be a little bit more of angst, but at the same time, I loved the sisterhood and friendship and relationship that Leela had with her stepdaughter, so I'm kind of glad that you didn't have them, like, hating each other, you know. Anyway, so the whole book is basically about them, that whole dynamic, and trying to find a way to either fight their feelings or find a way to be together, and at times it does kind of seem like it's going to be impossible for them to be together. I did really like this. I felt like it was a fun book. It was definitely a unique book, and I loved Leela. She was such a strong character, and I loved her. Like, she knows how to use a sword. She wears pants sometimes. Like, she's a writer. She's trying to make her own way in the world and not, you know, depend on any man. Like, she's one of my favorite female characters. I did kind of struggle until the end. Like, I really loved how this ended. There were some times when I struggled with Hunt. He wasn't necessarily one of my favorite heroes. I did like him a lot, but it just seemed like he was more in love with the night they spent together than he was her, and he was just, like, thinking she was the best that he'd ever had, and I kind of just wanted more from him. I wanted more than just one good night in bed, you know, like, I wanted to see how and why he loved her, and so that kind of knocked it down a star for me, but it was still really, really fun, and I actually really enjoyed reading this. The audiobook was really great too. I loved the narrator. Alright, the next 4-star book that I have is The Virgin Who Ruined Lord Grey by Anna Bradley. This was a new author for me. This was also an ARC that I got from NetGalley, and I honestly really, really enjoyed it. So we have Lord Grey, or Tristan, who is a Bow Street runner, and he has never once missed getting the man that he has been after, until Sophia comes along. Now, she's not anything like he was prepared for, and he is sort of instantly attracted and intrigued with her, and they end up teaming up together instead of him just catching her, and working to solve a mystery of who actually killed this man, and trying to free Sophia's friend who is wrongfully imprisoned. And I really, really enjoyed this book. I felt like the love story in this had a really slow build that had a lot of longing and a lot of really just like attraction, like a quiet attraction, and they were both super interested with each other, and every time they had a meeting I was like, oh my gosh, are they gonna kiss? Are they gonna kiss now? Please let them kiss. And it did take a little while for them to get there. This definitely felt like it was more focused on the mystery than the romance, although the romance was really pretty front and center too. So if you like a really good romance or a really good mystery in your romance, I think you might really enjoy this, because it was definitely unique and it had a really good plot all throughout. I did give this a 4 out of 5 star instead of a full 5 star because I felt like the first half of this book was really pretty slow, and then it definitely picked up speed and had more character involvement, and it also had a lot more, like, the mystery picked up pace too. But yeah, I really liked this. It was a good read. It was a 4 star. Okay, the next 4-star book that I read was Riffs and Refrains by Dani Perry. This is book 2 in the Hush Note series. This book follows Quinn, who is the female drummer in Hush Note, and we saw her in the background a little bit in the first book, and she had a bit of an attitude. She kind of did some crappy things in that first book where you really didn't like her, and so I was kind of concerned. I was like, am I really even going to want to read a whole book about her? But I really feel like Dani Perry pulled it off really well in this. So we have Quinn, who has fled her hometown to be in the band Hush Note and sort of trying to put her past behind her. She had a really close relationship with her grandma, who she calls Gram, or Grammy, or something. And she finds out that her grandma has passed away. And so she immediately flies home, and she's filled with a lot of guilt for running away and a lot of sadness on the missed opportunities she had with her family because now her grandma has passed away. But when she gets there, she meets up with Graham, not her grandma, Graham, the love interest, who was like her high school sweetheart. And they sort of start feeling that sparks and lingering attraction from when they were together before, and that was really, really fun. I will say that this book was really very quiet, very slow moving. It has a small town romance type of feel, and it really deals more with Quinn's journey of healing and her past, and quite a lot of that was a little bit sad. So this definitely isn't the fun, sunshine, and happy book that Hush Note was, but it was still, honestly, I really liked it. I don't really mind. I actually like that when it sort of deals with characters that are, you know, overcoming things in their past or trying to make right choices for things that maybe they may feel like they made wrong choices for in the past. I just really liked it. But I did end up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars because I felt like this, you'll probably see this often in a lot of my 4-star reads for this month, but I just didn't feel their romance. I didn't really feel their love story. They kind of went from, oh, we used to be dating and it was just so great, to the bedroom. And that's fine if that's the point of the book, or if you get a chance to later see them fall in love, but you really didn't in this. And so for that reason, I just didn't believe that they were in love, you know? Like, I feel like it's one thing to have a book where they just go straight to the physical relationship and there's no expectation that that means love, right? But it really bothers me when they do that and they try to sell that to you as love, because it's just not, you know? Like, if you're going to say that they now love each other because they spent one night together, like, I just don't buy it, you know? I need to see them falling in love. And so that was really the only reason I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, just because I felt like there wasn't quite enough time for me to buy into the actual love and not just that they were relying on the older feelings they had and now they can be together and happy ever after, you know? That's just something I'm really picky about. Like, if you're gonna have that type of a relationship, you gotta show me the love. You gotta show me that they love each other. You can't just expect me to believe that they spend one magic night together and now they're in love, because I just don't believe it. So, like I said, you'll see that you'll see that in some of the other books that I rated 4 stars. So let's see what is the next book I rated 4 stars. Okay, the next book I rated 4 stars was honestly a freaking delight, and that was Booked for Christmas by Lily Manon. This was also in my Christmas reading vlog. This is a super short novella. It was a ton of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I really wanted to give it 5 stars, but it just was kind of lacking on the romantic development, you know, not much, but just like not enough to get, like, I'm stingy with my 5 stars. Like, for my taste, like, the love story has to wow me. Like, bang, pow, you know? So this book follows Sophie and Wolf. Now, Sophie is a romance novelist, and Wolf is like a book critic, and he is constantly on Sophie's case in his articles and just really just roasting her all the time about how insignificant her romance books are and how they are just so sappy and unimportant, and, you know, so she really hates this guy. Like, she does not like him at all. So one night, Sophie has her annual Christmas party. It's in this little cabin up in Portland in the woods. She's super excited for it. She kind of goes all out. She invites all these people. When who shows up at her door but Wolf? He shows up as the +1 of someone she had invited, but the person she invited was sick and couldn't go, so Wolf decided to go and take the wine and all that stuff, you know, and neither of them knew that they were going to be there. So this little hate-to-love romance was super fun. So they're at the cabin. Wolf decides to stay for the party. Sophie tries her best to not really, you know, shoot flames at her eyes at this guy who has roasted her beloved romance novels over and over again. They kind of have this very shaky truce for the party when all of a sudden a snowstorm comes in and all of the guests leave, but somehow Wolf ends up stuck there in the cabin, and him and Sophie are snowed in for several days It was very delightful, very fun. This is Lily Manon. So she is actually Sandhya Manon, who wrote When Dimple Met Rishi. She's just branching out into adult romance novels. I believe her debut novel comes out in the spring. I am super hyped about that. Definitely will be looking it up after I got into this. This was a little steamy. It was very fun. Very flirty, hate to love. I really just enjoyed the heck out of this. I thought this was very, very fun. It was super short. I just wished it was a little longer to give me that full romantic development, which she teased and I know is going to be there. I definitely have my eye on her for future books because I was a little bit wowed by this. I have read When Dimple Met Rishi and I really liked that too, but I am super hyped to see what she does with a full-length adult romance. It'll be good. Alright, the next 4-star book that I have is The Viscount Who Loves Me, which is the second book in the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn. I really, really enjoyed this. I honestly really just was pretty much smiling the whole way through this. This was just so fun and I just loved it. So this follows Anthony, who is the oldest Bridgerton, and he is sort of taking the place of his father once his father died, and is kind of acted as a father figure to his siblings. So in this book, he decides that, you know, it's probably time to marry. He has definitely been a rake, and now he's ready to settle down and find a good woman to, you know, make an heir, do the things that are expected of a Bridgerton, the oldest Bridgerton. So pretty soon though, he ends up meeting a young woman named Kate, and they instantly have this hate to love animosity. They're constantly picking at each other. Kate really fires right back with Anthony, and Anthony is honestly kind of a jerk, but I really honestly didn't find him unlikable in this book at all. I really just felt a lot of empathy with him. You get to see the prologue and what happened to his dad, and there's a lot of time where you get to see how he really thinks and how he really feels, so he wasn't unlikable for me. And Kate, I just loved her. She is really a spitfire of a heroine, and she did not let him do, you know, she did not let him get away with anything. Like, she was right there, giving it right back to him. I really loved the hate to love romance in this. I just felt like the Bridgertons, they're just such a fun book to read. They're a fun series to read. I really, really enjoy them. Again, like, I'm not sure why I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really liked it, but there was just not the amount of swoon, which I feel like sometimes is the amount of swoon in their romance just wasn't quite there for me, and I can't figure out exactly why that is in this book, because honestly, I really, really liked it, but it just didn't quite hit me in the feels as much as I wanted it to. But I still really enjoyed it, and I definitely want to keep reading this series. Getting ready for the Bridgerton Netflix series, super excited about that, and I am really glad I read this because I really didn't like Anthony from The Duke and I, but now I'm sort of like, yeah, I like you. So that was a super fun one. I really, really enjoyed it. If you didn't like The Duke and I would really suggest moving into this one. I think you might like it a lot better. There's really not anything in here that was problematic. It was just honestly fun, funny, romantic, really cute. Liked it a lot. Okay, the next book I read was also a Christmas novella, and this was The Captain's Midwinter Bride. Now, this is sold as a Christmas novella, but it really is pretty much just a winter novella. Christmas is really just sort of like a backdrop setting in this one. It didn't really play a huge role in this. This follows Philip and Annalise, who were married very young in a sort of like an arranged marriage. They had 2 young children, and then Philip left to serve the Queen in the Navy, so he really wasn't around much in their young married life to help raise the children or to really have much of a relationship with Annalise. And so now when he returns and he gets to stay home, they're both about 42 years old, so they've been married for about 20 years. They do have 2 children, and their oldest daughter is right about to get married in this book. And this love story, honestly, was just so sweet and so just really just comforting and hopeful. This second chance romance was just... I don't know, so the whole plot of this is basically that their daughter is engaged to be married, but Philip really doesn't feel like he loves her, and he doesn't want his daughter to marry for a reason that's not love, while at the same time he's trying to re-win his wife, and I mean, she's not leaving him, but sort of re-establish their love and get her to fall in love with him again, and sort of to make a second chance for the years that they've missed in their young married life, and watching the sweet, slow, beautiful evolution of the second chance romance was just completely heartwarming and just really was just soft and sweet and lovely, and it was just everything that I wanted. I loved this book so much. I don't even know why I gave it 4 instead of 5 stars now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe 4.5. This was almost perfect in a short little novella. It was just lovely, and highly, highly recommend this if you want like a short, really lovely romance that just, it was pretty much perfect. I really liked it a lot. Okay, and the next book that I have that was 4 stars is Dear Ava. Now, I heard that this book was highly, highly recommended. I've heard a lot of people really love this book. Some of my friends really love this book. And so I went into this with pretty high expectations. This book basically is it isn't enemies to lovers. It's a standalone. It is new adult. They're like 18 in high school. Most of the book takes place when they're 18 and in high school. And I honestly have sort of felt like I don't really vibe a whole lot with new adult romance too often. But I'm always willing to read them, especially if they're highly recommended and especially if they're enemies to lovers. So this book took a little bit of time for me to really feel invested and to really feel like I was liking this, and the ending of this was just beautiful and perfect, and that's really what made me end up giving it a 4 instead of a 3 star. So this follows Ava and Knox. Ava, in the opening chapter, has some sexual assault that has just happened to her, and so the whole book really deals with that trauma and her trying to make a life for her and get over that. She really has had a lot of bad things happen to her. She's pretty much an orphan, so she's really just living on her own at 18. She ends up living in like a boarding house situation. She's got a little brother who she's very protective of and is trying to live her life in a way so that she can end up taking care of him when she gets to be an adult. She's a very smart girl. She's won a scholarship to this school, this really well-respected high school, so she's hoping to make a way for herself in college, and even though she literally has nothing and no one in her life. And then we have Knox, who is sort of the star of the football team in high school, and so you definitely have those cliches there. Like you have the cliche of like the cool, popular high cheerleaders and football players, and then you've got Ava, who's sort of the outcast, but Knox really has feelings for Ava. And so it was a little bit cliche at times there, but their love story was honestly, the way that it ended is really what put it at a 4 star for me. And I just really, that's what made me believe that these two really did have or could have a soulmate type of love, and I just really enjoyed seeing them get there happily ever after. On the way to get there was sometimes hard, and it was a little bit sad, but it was just, I don't know. This book was really good. I would say if you like young adult books, or not young adult, if you like new adult books, you would probably really love this. I just sort of feel like it's a little hard for me to really love reading about. I don't want to be harsh because it's not always, right? But this one definitely had that new adult feel, and that's something that I kind of struggle with just because I just feel like I'm kind of not interested in reading that anymore. But I persevered because I really liked the characters and I really wanted to see what the hype was about, and I'm glad that I did because I really did enjoy this. Knox was a really wonderfully damaged, tortured hero who truly loved Ava and was really doing all he could to take care of her and protect her and try and be with her, and it was really good. I liked it a lot. Alright, and the last 4-star read that I had was Queen Move by Kennedy Ryan. This book was really, really good. It was beautifully well done. This book follows Ezra and Kimba, who were sort of like childhood friends. Their parents lived close together and they had this really close relationship. They grew up together, were best friends, started to have like sort of like crush type feelings for each other. They were each other's first kiss, and then when they are 13, their parents have this big fight and separate, and Ezra's family leaves, and Kimba is sort of left behind. And so the book starts with that. You have that history background, and then you don't see them again until they're in their late 30s. Like, they don't see each other again until they're in their late 30s when Kimba's dad dies and Ezra shows up at the funeral. but he has a son and what Kimba thinks is a wife there with him, so she just kind of writes him off even though she's super excited to see him again. And then a few more years pass and they end up meeting one another again. And that's when they start to fall in love and have a relationship and try and work through the many, many issues that they are dealing with and the difficult choices they have to make that are in regards to previous relationships, their jobs, some infertility issues. It was really, honestly, beautifully well done, and I have nothing but the highest respect for Kennedy Ryan. But again, this was another one of those books where I felt like you didn't really get to see them fall in love when they met again in their 30s. It just sort of relied on that immense attraction and the connection that they felt that they had when they were 13, and it just seemed a little bit like to go from 13 to 37 with no time together at all, and then to come together at 37 and just to sort of believe that they were in love without actually seeing that on page was just a little hard for me to believe. So I really, really liked this a lot, and I just was expecting to see more of their romance on the page, and I just didn't really see that. So I gave that a 4 out of 5 stars, but definitely want to read the other 2 books which I hadn't read in this, so definitely going to go back and read The Kingmaker because I was super impressed with this. Alright, now on to my 5-star reads, and this book is one of my favorites of the year. It is Wolf Song by T.J. Klune. I finally read this for the Paranormal Romance Readathon. I love this book so deeply. I don't even know where to begin on this. I have gushed so much about this book in my daily vlogs. I love this book with my whole heart and soul. This is basically about a family of wolf shifters and a family of humans. It really follows Ox, who we start to see in the beginning as he's just a boy. He grows up to be a teenager and a family moves in down the lane and they're a family of wolf shifters, and one of the boys has this instant connection with Ox that is just adorable and heartfelt, and it really ends up being their whole epic story of what happens to their families, and they end up really sort of tied together in a way that can't be torn apart by anything else. There is so much heartbreak in this book, but it was also just such a beautiful, completely, oh my gosh, I don't even have words for this. This was just completely beautiful, hopeful book about the power of love in all different ways, and especially it was so hopeful to see Ox just really find a family when he came from such a sort of devastating childhood with his dad. Oh my gosh, this book was just fantastic and perfect and everything I wanted that I didn't even know I needed, and it has made me a T.J. Klune fan for life. This was the second book I had read of his. I had read The House in the Cerulean Sea earlier in the summer, which I really, really loved, but I actually feel like I love this even more because it was just so devastatingly beautiful, and I just loved it so much. If you want to hear me gush more about it, you can watch my vlogs, but this book is always going to be in my top 5 books of all time because it was fan-freaking-tastic. Alright, and then the next 5-star read that I decided to finish the Rules of Scoundrels series by Sarah McLean. I had read No Good Earl Deserves a Lover in October for my comfort reading vlog. Just fell completely in love with that, and so I decided to carry on with that, and so I picked up No Good Duke Goes Unpunished. And let me just tell you how much I love this book. This book, I could say this about every Sarah McLean book that I've ever read, honestly. I really could. They have everything that I want in a historical romance. Like, I love how, I just love everything that she writes. And honestly, so this book follows Temple, who we've seen in the other 2 books. He's basically the fighter of, and who makes sure that the people who lose at the gambling hell that is in the other 2 books, that if they lose, he makes sure that they pay or they have to fight him. You know, they can fight him to try and win their money back, but like they're not gonna get away without paying. Like, he is a brutal fighter. He's known as like the killer duke. He was a duke, and he just is, honestly, I was just waiting for his story because I just knew it was gonna be fantastic. Like, this brutish man who is so fierce and so hard and just like this fighter, and I was just waiting to see what woman would bring him to his knees, and I was so not disappointed because Mara, oh, she was perfect. So when Temple was a youth, like 18-ish or something like that. He was a bit of a rogue, and he had this one night with Mara. And he wakes up, and she's gone, and there's blood everywhere, and he is sort of accused or accepted to be her killer, although he's never, like, taken to jail or anything like that. So all his life, his whole reputation has just been ruined. He lived this life of privilege, got to go to all the parties, like, he was the Duke and was socially accepted, and now he's sort of become an outcast that nobody really wants him anywhere around, and he has definitely sort of leaned into that persona. So now, 12 years later, he finds Mara, who has come to try and work off the debt that her brother owes to Temple. And so they have this bargain that they are trying to work that out, and Temple decides he's going to try and ruin her, and it was just so good. Like, watching, you know, if you've watched any of my videos, you know, but if you haven't, you know how I feel about a big, brutish, hard, tough guy just crumbling into buttery softness for the woman he loves. It is literally my favorite thing ever, and that was exactly what this is, and I loved it so dearly. It was just perfect. 5 out of 5 stars. I loved this book so much. Very, very happy with this. And then the next book I read carrying on in that was Never Judge a Lady by Her Cover, the last book in that series. And let me just tell you, I was very surprised at the twist and shocked and so happy. I did not see it coming, and I was here for it, and I freaking loved it. And I don't know, I know this book has been out for a while, but I also feel like if you haven't read this series, I don't want to say a thing about it because it's such a delightful twist that you will not see coming. I mean, maybe you will, but I didn't, and so I don't really want to ruin it for you. So I don't really know how much I should say about this. But let me just tell you, this book was fantastic. The love story in here was everything that I wanted. Like, I was slightly disappointed just because I had such high expectations for this last member of the Fallen Angel. I couldn't wait to get his love story. So I was kind of disappointed, but not too much, because pretty soon I was just overcome with the sense of rightness that this couple had, and reading the last book, I sort of knew what was coming. I know I'm being super vague. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, please read the series. It was so good. I love this series. I still feel like the Bare Knuckle Bastard series is higher up on my list, but I really, really loved this one too. Particularly, I loved book 2 and 3. Those are my favorites. I feel like Pippa and Cross are still my favorite. The first book, I kind of want to reread because it's been so long since I read that I feel like I would probably like it more now. Anyway, Sarah McLean Gush, love this series so much. 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend it. Just fantastic. And the next 5-star read that I have is Brily. Now, this was a novella that I read as part of Novella November with Bookish Kelly and Dana on Instagram. That was just a complete delight to be a part of that group read. And let me just tell you how dearly I loved this novella. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it is an Beauty and the Beast retelling, so it's basically if Maurice had stayed with the Beast instead of Belle. It's set in World War II. This is a heartbreakingly beautiful book that looks at what love really means, and I loved the whole concept of acceptance and how difficult that can be for people who are LGBTQ, but also how hopeful and just lovely and beautiful that is, and I cannot recommend this highly enough. Like, this was just perfection. This was absolutely beautiful, completely worth it. This novella was absolutely 5 stars for me. This was a novella done right. It was perfect. And the next 5-star read I had is Wolfgang Wild by Juliet Cross. I loved this book so dearly. Oh my gosh, this book was so fun. This was so swoony. I loved this book so freaking much. So this follows Mateo, who is a werewolf, and Evie, who is a witch. And Mateo has this problem. It's set in Louisiana and New Orleans. Mateo has this problem where he is unable to shift into his wolf form. So he has like the alpha wolf in his head who constantly kind of drives him crazy and makes him sort of feel like he's constantly on edge and angry, and he ends up at the bar where Evie works and he almost like attacks this guy, and because he just can't keep his alpha in control, and that's the point where Evie decides that she will help him try and break this curse, even though her family says, hey, stay away from werewolves. Their romance was completely delightful. I loved their romance. Mateo is one of the best cinnamon roll werewolves I have ever read about in my life, and I loved every second of this book. I loved the plot, I loved the magic, I loved Evie's family of witches, I loved how tender and sweet Mateo was for Evie. I loved the nerdy references to Raylo. I loved how Evie loved comic books and she was a comic book artist. She was making her own comic book, her graphic novel. I just love this book. This was such a delightfully fun, completely enjoyable book. I have zero complaints. It was perfect. I'm now a huge fan of Julia Cross. This was wonderful. Alright, and the next 5-star read that I have is Raven Song by TJ Klune. Again, what can I say about this? This is also an MM paranormal romance following wolf shifters and witches and some humans. This book follows Gordo, who is the witch in Wolfsong that we saw. This is a second chance romance. This book was heartbreakingly beautiful, and it was just absolutely emotional and perfection. I love this series so much. I honestly... I feel like there are a very few books that deserve the hype that they receive, and this series, Wolfsong, is absolutely one of them. TJ Klune is a fantastic writer, and I literally feel like he deserves every award that there is in the world, and he deserves fresh-baked cookies every single day. He needs to be protected at all costs. He is doing a miraculous thing with the stories that he is telling about found family and love and acceptance and just being who you are, and I dearly love it so much. If you have not picked up this series, please do. It's fantastic. Okay, we have 2 books left. This is getting very long. So the next book I have to talk about is All Scott and Bothered by Kerrigan Byrne. This was a 5 out of 5 star for me. This is perfection. This is one of my favorite Kerrigan books ever. I loved this so much. This follows Cecilia and Ramsey. Now, Cecilia has a really sad beginning to her life. She is a plus-size heroine, and she is deeply, deeply emotional and lovely, and even though she's had so much terrible things happen to her in her life, she has never once in this book lost sight of that ability that she has to still feel love and to still accept others and be loving, and she just was such a great character for me in terms of how you can still be such a kind and gentle person even though you've had really terrible things happen to you in her life. So she ends up meeting Ramsey. So Ramsey is trying to put a stop to this gaming hell and just have it be abolished and no more. He's trying to find out who owns the gaming hell. Little does he know, Cecilia is the one who owns it, and she's trying to run that business, and also they end up deeply attracted to each other. The opening scene in here when they first meet was one of my favorite scenes in the world. I loved it. This book was just perfection. Again, Ramsey is one of those really alpha, tough guy heroes who just completely melts for his woman, and I loved it so much. This book was fantastic. We have a whole live discussion on my show if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts and hear mine and Jen from the Book Refuge. This was our November pick for the Rake Appreciation Society, and it was perfection, and we had a really great discussion if you want to hear more of our thoughts about it. Okay, and finally, the last book, the last 5-star read that I had was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. This book was perfection. This is the most recent book that I read that was 5 stars, and I just absolutely loved it. This follows Dani, who is a teacher and an academic, but she's also sort of like a witch. Like, she has this modern day witchy lifestyle that she leads, which is really pretty cool. And then we have Zafir, who is the security guard at the school where Dani works. So they have sort of this friendship that is really pretty adorable, and Zafir actually brings protein bars for Dani every day, and she brings him coffee every day, and it's super, super cute. And then one day, Dani decides to pray to, like, the witch gods or goddesses for a romantic partner without any strings attached. Like, she doesn't do commitment, so she's just looking for somebody to have a really good time with. And then she finds herself stuck in an elevator during a gas drill at her school, that she did not know was going to happen. She ends up stuck in the elevator. Zafir comes and rescues her, and she suddenly has all of these feelings for this guy who she has known for quite a while. Now, Zafir is literally one of the best cinnamon roll heroes I have ever read about. He is one of my favorite heroes of all time. He reads romance novels. He is very tender and very sweet and just loves Dani so much. I adored this book. This book was fantastic. 5 out of 5 stars. So funny, so cute, so swoony. Also talks about like anxiety and grief, dealing with grief, but that doesn't really take over from the rom-com feels. This book was just so freaking good. I loved it to pieces. Honestly, can't say enough good things about it. It was fantastic. I hope it wins the Goodreads Choice Award because it deserves it. It was fabulous. Well, there is my November wrap-up. This video is super long. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on these books if you've read them too, or let me know what you read, what your favorite book was for November. I'll see you in my next video.